You're about to watch part 2 of my trip to Laguna Hills Nursery. In this segment, I walk around the nursery with Gary Matsuoka. For those of you that don't know, Gary Matsuoka is a Grand Master Gardener, gardening in this area, Southern California, for decades. I interviewed him. Go watch the interview. It was my last video on my channel. I'll put the link up here at the top. You guys can check that out. But this is the second part where we walk around the nursery. Gary talks more about plants, gives more knowledge, gives more concepts and ideas about growing plants the right way. We look at a lot of nice fruit trees, and Gary talks about very interesting topics, just like he did in the first part in the interview. And then we go look at his big pile of dirt, his special dirt that he's created, because he is an expert when it comes to soils. His ideas when it comes with soils are very interesting and unique, and they seem to work. So we talk about soil a lot again in this video. All right, guys. So enjoy, okay? If before we go, like, subscribe, and let's go back to the video.
Clusters ripen without having to go through winter.
Yeah.
So
You got some dwarf Brazilian bananas planted in the ground here. Oops,
you
sorry.
can see the flower cluster.
Look at that. This is the dwarf Brazilian variety, and Gary said they don't need to stake. They stay this size, and they don't fall over. And you said you got three.
We harvested, 3 crops of them late this last year, and they were fabulous fruits.
Nice.
Better than the store stuff.
Yeah.
Now, here we've got our bare root, and we love selling these because this is the one time a year we can sell trees with nothing around the roots. So they're in compost. This sawdust here, that's just temporary to keep the roots moist. We noticed that, within a month from now, the sawdust will be rotting real bad because it does that when it's moist. But for right now, it's keeping the roots of our bare root trees moist. And we can sell perfect plants. They've been in the ground. They've never been in a container. They're going to go right back to your house in the ground. One plant we can feel very happy to sell. So
it's bare root season here at Laguna Hills Nursery. There's a lot of bare root trees. A lot of different stone fruits, cherries, plums, peaches, nectarines, and such. And a lot of interesting varieties like this. Spice Z Nectar Plum is kind of hard to find. You don't find this variety too often in big box stores. And this one I've never even heard of. Atomic Red Flowering White Nectarine. Looks very fascinating. And that's what Laguna Hills Nursery specializes in. They usually have very kind of hard to find varieties of certain fruits. Here's the one, Dapple Supreme. Pluot. Wow. Never heard of that one. I've heard of Dapple Dandy, but not Dapple Supreme.
It's a daughter of Dapple Dandy, and it needs less chill, and it usually does well here. Yeah. So one of the other things that we're doing nowadays is we're growing more and more of what we sell. So we've always been a grower and a seller, but we were only growing a few things. Mainly trees and maybe some roses, fruit trees and roses. But when we started growing other things, we go, okay, we can't even stand selling the stuff we buy from wholesale growers. Mm-hmm. So one of the plants that we hate to ever pick up a wholesale one is lavender. Because lavender is so rot prone. It's probably the most sensitive plant we've ever dealt with. You put just a teaspoon of compost around the base of this plant, you can rot it. But when there's nothing, no compost around it, at least in the root zone, it's one of the strongest plants we've ever seen. Can't kill one of these things. But it's one of the most problematic plants in the industry. Another one that's super problematic, the native white sage. So a lot of the natives are failing because the growers grow them in compost. And native plants haven't been in cultivation that long, so they haven't chosen the ones that are more tolerant to compost. This white sage is not tolerant at all of compost, and you won't find any white sage that looks like ours. I mean, if you look at our soil in here, you can see the rocks, you can see this, what looks like sand and peat, but you don't see any wood product in there. And this plant's very happy, very easy to now grow it. And, they'll tell you white sage, really sensitive to summer watering. Well, no, not if there's no compost around it. It loves water in the summer. So that's one of the other big misconceptions we have is that drought-tolerant plants and native plants don't like summer water.
Huh.
It's like, why?
Oh.
So yeah, we grow a lot of our own California natives. Like here's some Ceanothus.
Yeah.
I was emailing a professor at UC Berkeley because he had written a paper about what is, about what do they call it? They're planting near highways the native California plants, and he says a lot of these, most of the plantings are failing. And so I emailed him my thoughts on that. He says, yeah, I concur. They're growing the plants in the wrong material, and they're coming to us with root rot already on them. So that's the problem. A lot of the natives you buy at most nurseries are already rotting when you get the plant.
Wow.
So yeah. We generally grow most of our own natives now too, yeah. just for that reason. We don't want to sell someone a plant that won't take water. And we find that most of the quote water sensitive plants aren't sensitive to water at all. Yeah. It's just the compost. That combination of compost in the ground and water is a bad one.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at some of these fruit trees you have.
Mm-hmm.
So we have here ice cream banana, big one in a pot. Oh, wow, I've never seen a banana in a pot in a container that has fruit on it. That's pretty interesting. So here's the ice cream banana in a container, and it's holding fruit. Wow, that's cool. And there's another big one right next to it. The Dwarf Brazilian,
mm-hmm.
the one that's planted in the ground. We have some varieties of pomegranate that are supposed to be really good. Dessert-y I've heard of, and this one.
Salvatsky, I've never eaten that one, but it's supposed to be another good one from the Russian collection.
Yeah. Then we have some guavas. Oh, you have the yellow strawberry. Wow. This is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated fruit trees you can grow in Southern California. Heavy producer of really delicious fruit. Have you tried this one?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
They're good. They're good. If you go to the big island of Hawaii, it's just covered with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an invasive species there.
Yeah.
Oh, and we have one of my personal favorites as well. Another extremely underrated fruit, the Suriname cherry, Eugenia uniflora. This is in my top 5. An incredible little tree to grow.
Beautiful plant too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have some mangoes. And then we have, this is a guava. Is this also the yellow guava?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. All right, let's go look at the big dirt pile. This is their seed starting operation over here.
Might get a kick out of this. This is
They got more
all
containers.
Our bare root storage area. So when they're not on display, they're under wet blankets.
This is under these blankets are bare root fruit trees.
We're bringing well over 1,000, so we can't. Only about a couple hundred be on display at one time.
1,000.
So we're restocking.
They have sugar cane. Looks like.
Yep.
Some grapes. In fact, speaking of grapes, I tried probably the greatest grape I've ever eaten here at Laguna. I tried it here at Laguna Hills Nursery. The Razzmatazz Grape. Gary, what do you think of the Razzmatazz Grape? You want to talk about it?
Well, it's an unusual grape. So it's a hybrid of the muscats from the deep south.
Yeah. And
generally the muscats of the deep south, no one will eat them because they've got plastic for skin. And they got seeds, but they have great flavor. So somebody in Texas, I believe, crossed those with the European grapes and got a smallish grape with really chewy skin. That's quite good. It's almost like eating fruit leather. Yeah. Extremely sweet, no seeds, and it produces from July to December.
Wow.
So amazing little grape, and it always fruits the first year.
6 months of production.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, we're here at Gary's big old dirt pile. This is his top pot soil minus 1 or 2 ingredients, I believe. Here's the top pot soil. It's an upside down bag. but here's more of it. This is the stuff that Gary's nursery makes. This is their proprietary blend of special soil of things that will not rot.
And we pretty much grow everything in it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's a fern or a succulent. If it's good soil, everything grows.
Yeah.
So these are avocados we grew from they were about 1.5 feet tall when we got them.
Yeah. And those trees are all grown in this soil.
All top pot,
Yeah.
nothing else.
And these grew from a small, they were about
1.5 feet.
1.5 feet to how tall they are now in about a year.
Well, the taller one there is actually on its second year.
Oh, okay.
But the one next to it's less than a year old from the time, well, it's probably overall from when it was grafted is less than 2 years old.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I see a noticeable difference of these trees in this size in this container compared to the ones in the similar container at the big box store. These trees look a lot healthier.
Yeah, I was at a wholesale nursery down in San Diego County last year, and he was the owner of there, or one of the guys working there, was explaining the difference between a 15-gallon avocado and a 24-inch box. He said it takes 2 years. It takes us 4 months.
Wow.
To make that difference. But their soil was very woody.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. So that's the difference that soil makes. The growth rate is noticeable.
Yeah, well, our trees generally spend about 3 months in each size of container. I mean, they go from the little tiny ones, 5 gallons, 3 months later, 15-gallon months, 3 months later, 24-inch box.
Wow.
So.
Amazing. Amazing.
I mean, we're going to break 400 hours of chill in a week.
Yeah.
That's really cold. Well, for what we've had lately.
Yeah, lately.
Haven't had anything like that for over 10 years.
Yeah. What about the amount of rain we've gotten this year? Is it something that tracks with what you've experienced in the past, or is it more or less, or how would you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's been so all over the place. What can you say? When I first started gardening, we had 4 or 5 years of drought back in the 80s, and then we had really good rainstorm. I don't know if you remember the March Miracle in 1990. It's either 90 or 91, which saved Santa Barbara that year. It rained 7 inches in one day.
Whoa! Wow!
Or over the weekend, and it filled the reservoirs. Otherwise, they would have been dried up.
Wow!
And then we had the El Niños the 3 El Niños in 4 years in the 90s. So I thought, boy, we're going to, you know, we had heard that with global warming, we're going to have El Niños every other year.
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, this is neat. We're getting, 20, 30 inches of rain every other year. It's like, okay, we can live with that.
Yeah.
And then it got drier and drier and drier.
Wow.
But there's no set pattern.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting is 1869, it rained over 50 inches in LA.
Wow.
But so the next year they started taking rain measurements. So that's not official. That one super wet year is not official because they hadn't started taking measurements yet.
Yeah.
So, they said, well, we don't really get bad storms. Well, yeah, we did. We got that, they said that the city of LA became the main city in Southern California after that rainstorm because the other city that was there, gone. It was totally washed out to the ocean.
Oh, wow.
They said it rained so much, so much water came off the San Gabriels, and that city was at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains. They couldn't find a bit of it left. It was just totally washed out. And so LA became, by default, the main city in Southern California after that.
Oh,
so that's how bad the rain can be. They said, and then I've heard from other scientists that that's not the big one.
Yeah.
They've seen sediment deposits in the river in Ventura, way worse.
Wow.
So Southern California can get really nasty, and it can happen anytime. We don't know.
What city was that got washed out?
Oh, I don't remember the name of it.
Was it Pasadena?
But
Because it sounds
no,
like the base of
no,
the mountain.
it was somewhere east of Pasadena, I
Ah.
believe. But if you look up the floods in California in 1869, they said Central Valley was essentially a sea.
Wow.
Um,
Oh, wow.
So that's how you replenish your groundwater.
Yeah.
Every so many hundred years, you just
Yeah.
become a lake.
Wow.
And the groundwater is, you lose all your plants because they're underwater for a long time. They said Sacramento was only reachable by boat until summer. They said finally
Wow.
by summer, they can get there on horseback or car.
Wow.
Well, there was no cars in the 1870s.
Wow, that's interesting.
So,
I think you mentioned in one of your talks, you said farmers are noticing that plants are growing much faster
oh yeah, I noticed it too.
because of the amount of
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. There, yeah.
Yeah, we've not, in the 6-7 years ago when we had those real hot years, never seen plants grow that fast. Figs growing 8 foot from a cutting
Wow.
in 1 year.
Yeah.
It's like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
in fact, the NASA scientists admit that the Earth is greener now than it was 25 years ago.
Wow.
The deserts are greener, everything's greener than it was.
Yeah.
Because when there's more carbon dioxide in the air, you don't have to open your pores to let the water out. Plants have to open their pores to get the carbon dioxide in, but when they do that, the water's going out.
Wow.
But if you can keep your carbon dioxide levels high enough, just opening a little bit,
Yeah.
plants don't need to use as much water.
Wow. That's so interesting.
So